And we're rolling. Cool. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast. I'm with Brad Davidson. The show is Outliers. This is Daniel Tromello. I'm incredibly excited to have you on the show, Brad, for a lot of reasons. And for those people that don't know who you are, I wanted to kind of get into your story. Cool. I know you're like a nutrition guru. You're a peak performance guru. I know he works with tons of professional athletes, from Carson Wentz to various other professional athletes. But Brad, tell me your story, man.
Yeah, so I've kind of had an interesting journey in this whole fitness performance realm. 2008, I was working with all these pro athletes, and I'm 33 at the time. Think I'm gonna do something super crazy, and I could hang with these kids, so I'm gonna go try out for an Olympic team. And so I chose bobsledding. It was the one sport I like to watch. And when I looked up what you needed, all you need to do is be big, fast, and explosive. I'm like, okay, I think I can still do that. So I called the coach, kind of worked my way into a tryout, made the team. I was the scrub on the team, but I was still there.
Okay.
But I was training these kids, right? So I took everything that I'd ever learned and I put it to the test. And I really believed at that time, like, the person who trains the most is the fittest, is probably the most elite in regards to the healthiest. I ate perfect, avoided carbs like the plague, did everything our industry says to do to an extreme. And it was cool. I put on 52 pounds in 10 months. I was running a 4.40. I had a 42-inch vert. And I did it all legally. That was probably one of my downfalls, but I didn't know that at the time. And everything was going great. And then one day my wife decides to hand me a little girl. And you know how that works, right? You go from being not a parent to a parent, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, people die doing what I'm doing. And like, there's a lot of problems here. Like, I joke around all the time, like, gosh, we just had the Winter Olympics, name one bobsledder. Nobody ever can. Like, okay, that's a problem. Back when I was there, the top 4 guys were making $2,500 a month. The rest of us were, paying our own way. And so here I am putting my life on the line to chase a pipe dream. And I was a scrub, and I really had no shot at making the Olympics, but it was fun. But all of a sudden it went from being like this thrilling thing to the scary thing. So I hung it up real quick. And it's within 2 weeks, like, my whole physiology fell apart. All of a sudden I couldn't get out of bed. I had no drive, no sex drive, anything. I just want to sleep all the time. I started feeling horrible. Patches of hair started falling out of my beard. And so I went and saw my doctor, and he's just like, hey, this is a buddy of mine. So, he saw me at 160 pounds. Next thing you know, I walk in, I'm like 210. And he's like, what the hell happened? And I told him the whole story. And he was like, why are you here? I'm like, I feel like a train wreck. I have no drive. I feel horrible. Hair's falling out of my face. Like, something's not right. And so he runs my labs, and results come back. And at 33, competing at an international level as a super freak, I'm diabetic. Like, I'm a type 2 diabetic. I'm like, how the hell am I diabetic? I haven't had a carb in 10 months. And he's like, I don't know, but I got to give you metformin, and your thyroid's shut down, and you got the testosterone levels in an 85-year-old sick man. I'm like, geez, why has he got to be sick? And he had men in their mid 80s that had higher testosterone levels than I did, looking like a super freak at 33. And he's like, man, you're in andropause. I'm like, what's that? It's male menopause. Like, you're in male menopause at 33. Here's your blood sugar meds, your thyroid meds, and your testosterone injections. Like, you're screwed.
Wow.
I'm like, awesome, but I look great. Right? So I started coming to the realization, like, wow, the external look can be very deceiving. And I started seeing that over the years of working with people, that oftentimes the fittest, best looking people on the outside were absolute train wrecks on the inside.
Right.
And gosh, I kind of had to rebuild myself from there. And, one of the first people I called was Rob Wolf, and I loved my conversation with him. We were going to do a podcast just like this. And before we started, I'm like, man, I've done something really wrong. I followed your plan perfect. I'm a train wreck. Here's my story. He goes, man, you're an idiot. I didn't write the paleo diet for you. That's for sick, lazy people with no stress. And that's the largest population out there. I got to sell a book. And, my guys like you that train at that level could have 600 grams of carbs a day. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I'd never heard that before. Like, I thought carbs were the worst thing ever. And so I started implementing these strategies, and so here I am. I'm right on the line of pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic, taking metformin, and I start eating carbs every day, and all of a sudden my blood sugar stabilizes out. I'm like, this is so crazy.
Really?
So I just realized at that point that stress is a big issue for high achievers, and nobody's talking about that, right? And exercise is just a fancy form of stress. And so here I am realizing, like, whoa, we're literally exercising ourselves to death, and the strategies that we need to recover from it are the stuff they're telling us is bad for us. And so I started playing with it and kind of ran into this niche of, I can help really high achievers that have overstressed themselves basically, get their lives back, get their energy back, get their performance back, and then stabilize it and hold it. So that's what I do now. All my stuff, I coach people around the world on it. And it's anywhere from CEOs to pro athletes to, some SEALs, some tactical guys like SWAT, to stay-at-home moms, to stay-at-home dads. Like if you're under a lot of stress and your energy's tanked and you're not performing well, that's the world I like to play in.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so
that's
it's been
insane.
fun.
So you're 33, your car looked like you're like a Greek god, like, right?
Yeah, totally.
But completely shut down. I can't believe you're diabetic. Or pre-diabetic. That's nuts.
Yeah. I got in an argument with the doctor. I'm like, you're lying to me. Like, there's no I haven't had a carb in 10 months. There's no way I'm at this level. He's like, here's your labs. Like, you're screwed. Like, I don't care what you say. Something's not right. And that's when so I started figuring out, like, what did I do wrong? And Rob told me, he's like, look, stress is killing you. Like, lazy people, you give them carbs, blood sugar will spike, you'll kill them. High stress people that perform a lot, you avoid carbs, you're going to kill them because of the stress response. And when you're stressed, the body traps blood sugar and blunts insulin. So you end up in the same spot. It's crazy. I tell people all the time, like, I have labs from really sick people and labs from the highest performers on the face of the earth. And a lot of times you can't tell who's sick and who's the highest performer when you look at labs. At both extremes, you end up at the same place. It's crazy.
So that was 2008.
Yeah.
And I know you had Stark Nutrition, which I know was a really big brand.
Yeah.
So that led you into the nutrition path from there. So you didn't have much of, you didn't study it as much. I mean, obviously you studied the body's physiology, but not to that extent.
Yeah. Up to that point, I was a strength coach. I was training all these guys.
Yeah.
And I was relying on other people for nutrition, and I, kind of doing what most trainers do. I was just reading the books, and at that time, paleo diet was the big thing and the healthy thing, and everybody should be on paleo diet, and so I was pushing that. And then when I fell apart, it was crazy at that point. I went to every expert under the sun, and nobody could help me. It was always like, eat cleaner or train this way. I was like, I don't even want to get out of bed, let alone go train. Like, wow. I don't get it, and so it led me down the realm of having to figure it out. And yeah, so I had a big gym in Orange County that was Stark, and and then I brought in the nutrition realm to that, and I really started pushing that. And eventually I started speaking all over the world and decided, gosh, I want to get outside of Orange County. I want to have a bigger reach.
Yeah.
I want to build platforms. Not everybody has $1,000 a month to come invest in somebody like me. So I wanted to build some programs that were super affordable that I could get to the world. And so that's what I've been working on for the last 18 months is, online programs that offer what I offer that are more kind of automated in real time and adjust to people's needs. And so that's where I'm at now.
That's awesome. So when someone comes in, and I know it's from my wife, because she went through your program a few years ago.
Yeah.
She had the best recovery she'd ever had. She was as strong as she'd ever been. And that year, I know you were working with quite a few professional athletes, at least in the CrossFit world, but I know you were professional athletes all over. Yeah. What is the process when you work with them? I know there's certain things that you test. What are you looking for when you're doing a test for somebody? What's that process?
Yeah, so now I've learned a few things. I like to look at labs. So I like to look at general lab panels, hormone lab panels. But I've actually rolled into also looking at symptomology, because what I've learned is oftentimes the symptoms will show before the labs are showing. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, okay, I like to get as many labs as I can. And then I had this huge questionnaire that I ask that tells me where the issue is. Because I've discovered this. Okay, if you're sick, you got to go see a doctor, right? Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't fix if you're sick. But if you're lethargic, there's no real major disease going on, and you're just not your normal self, I have discovered through my experience, and I have no science to back this. My work's all in the trenches. What I've found is that typically there's one of 4 areas of metabolism on a high achiever that's getting clogged up, shut down, or not performing well. It tends to either be the adrenals, the liver, the gut, or blood sugar. Mm-hmm. And actually, blood sugar is actually the least common. If it is blood sugar, it's typically driven by stress. But we'll figure that out, and we'll just go after. I like to put people in the first phase. I call it a reset, where basically it's like an off season. Like, you got to recover, regenerate, restore, fix what's broken. So a lot of times it's a kind of an eat less, do less plan. I learned from Dr. Jay Tita that if your metabolism's offline, you're never going to win. You can't outwork it. You can't out diet it. You got to go out rest it. And so phase 1, a lot of times, if people need it, is rest, rejuvenation, bring the metabolism back online, and then optimize. So once you have somebody back online and they're in a good place and they want to exercise and they're driven and have their mood back, then it's now teaching them how to build the nutrition, the lifestyle, the recovery to support whatever level of training they want to go to. Okay. I learned it wasn't training that wrecked me. Originally, I thought it was my training. Like, I trained too much.
Right.
Well, I've learned now, working with so many people, no, I just didn't have the recovery, the lifestyle, and the nutrition to support my level of training.
Got it. That makes sense.
I was literally, I was in an eat less, do more phase, but I was just doing more.
Yeah, I get.
Sleeping, I was working. Yeah. So we just find out where someone's at, what they need. And the first stage is bring them back online, get the metabolism on our side, and then build the support system. Because, let's talk about CrossFit. I've worked a ton of CrossFit over the years. I don't understand it. I do not understand the training. I don't understand. I mean, you got to be great at everything. In my world, I was taught how to be great at one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So great. Like, I don't care. Like, go find your coach and then tell me what they want to do with you. And then we're going to build the platform for everything outside the gym to get more in the gym. So you don't crash. So that's what I spent the last, literally since 2008, figuring out what the hell did I do.
Right.
And then, okay, how do I bring this to people so they don't go through what I went through? Because that sucked.
Yeah. And when you talk about bringing their metabolism back online, what does it mean offline exactly? So how does that work to get to online?
Yeah. So some symptoms of like offline, right? No sex drive or no drive for life. They're kind of the same thing. That's a real big one. That's where actually I pick up a lot of clients, especially in the military world, the kind of life or death world. Is like, hey man, make me want to have sex with my spouse again. Like something's not right, and I got to be in these secret missions, and they think I'm having an affair. I'm just freaking tired. So that's one big one. The sign that's off. If there's no desire to exercise, if you're willing yourself to the gym, that's a pretty good sign. If you're training really hard and getting no results, meaning you're like a lot of times I'll see in the cross world, for example, people are training their tails off, but their weight loads are going down. I just helped a gentleman in the UK. He's a master's athlete. He's like, man, I don't get it. Like I'm training like crazy and my strength's going away. Okay, that's a problem. Like that's a sign that it's not working. There's no energy left over at the end of the day to change. Or if you're in a world like trying to get fat loss going, if you're training hard and eating perfect and getting nowhere, that's a sign. Other big signs like cravings. If cravings get out of control, if your energy sucks, if your sleep sucks, if you're hungry all the time or not hungry at all, these are all just signs. People kind of know it. They know something's not right. They're lacking the discipline. They don't feel right. They don't have the energy. The drive's gone. Those are all signs that you're fighting your metabolism. You're not being optimized by your metabolism.
Got it. Now, how do you get them online? What's that process like? So you take client A, that's in UK.
Yeah.
What's that process?
Yeah. So oftentimes, it is, hey, we're going to cut your exercise back to nothing for a couple weeks. I remember Ruth Anderson-Horrell from New Zealand. This was years ago. She called me sitting on the gym floor, like something's not right. Like, she was so frustrated. I'm training so hard, I can't function. I said, hey, for the next 3 weeks, you're going to cut back your first 2 weeks. I want you to do anything. Like you can go for a walk every day. That's it. She's like, that's crazy. In 3 weeks, I got a competition. I'm like, I get it. But your fitness, your fatigue is masking your fitness. So we got to get you caught up on rest. So in her realm, it was like, look, instead of training, you're going to sleep 10 hours a day. You're going to go for a walk outside every day. I set up certain eating strategies to fix the problem. So that's the first 2 weeks. And then the third week was, okay, we're going to add a little bit of training in, more like weightlifting oriented, no Olympic lifting, no crazy WODs. And then week 4, she goes out and she's a feature member at a competition and she goes out and wins it. She's like, how the hell did I just do that? I didn't train for 3 weeks and I win. I was like, gosh, your fatigue is gone. So now your true fitness is showing up. So that's typically phase 1 is backing off. And that's very hard for people because we're used to believe we got to train hard. I've learned more since then. So like, for example, now I still let my athletes squat every week. I've learned if you stop squatting, that's the one exercise where strength disappears. And it is a miserable experience getting back in. I used to have to take 3 weeks of doing nothing, but now it's like, okay, let's cut back. You get a couple lifting sessions in a week. They're 20 minutes max. There's always a squat session in. There's no Olympic lifting, no WODs, no metabolic conditioning. It's just basics, maintain strength and sleep a lot, rest, things like that. And we just do that until the drive is back. And they know, when all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I want to go lift and work out more than anything. That's usually a really good sign.
Yeah, and that I'm sure you get a lot of distance runners too, right? Imagine them running themselves in the ground or swimmers, all kinds. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I love about that? The first guy to break the 4-minute mile, he before that meet he went. He actually went on vacation. He went and traveled. He just took some time off. Like there's validation there.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just heard that story not too
Yeah,
long ago. That like it's really interesting if you look at what he did before he broke the record. He wasn't out training hard, I'll tell you that much. It was fascinating.
Wow, it is fascinating.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to ask you about too is I know you test, I think it's HRV levels, right? HRV.
Yes.
That's really interesting. How exactly does that work? So when you're working with someone and you're doing that exam for them, like what are you looking for?
Yeah, so look at a couple things. Heart rate variability is a really nice tool to see how resilient someone is to stress and how ready they are to do activity on a daily basis. The hard part is finding accurate tools to measure.
Right.
So there's a couple options, right? So there's like one option, it's called Elite HRV. You put like a Polar H7 heart rate strap on when you wake up in the morning, you hit a button, and 2.5 minutes later, you get a result. And what we're looking at is where's heart rate variability levels? What we found is people that are 80 or higher have a much higher VO2 max. Their cardiac output is really good.
That's where you want to be. 80 is like a good threshold. 80 and up.
Yeah, 80 or higher is the ideal threshold. If you want to be a CrossFit athlete and compete, you got to be 90 or higher. Most like Navy SEALs, Special Forces, people that are have a genetic makeup to handle stress well, typically test out very high. Compared to like the typical CEO I work with, they start out like 45 to 55. They're trainers, right? So it's all based on aerobic capacity.
Okay.
And what they found is the better your VO2 max is, the better your aerobic capacity, the more resilient you are to stress. It kind of just bounces off you.
Yeah.
It means your left ventricle is stretched, so you pump blood well, you get oxygen muscles well. So we're looking at that. We're looking at resting heart rate. We want to see that below 60. So once we have a starting state, like I know if I got a CrossFit athlete who's struggling, I test their HRV and it's like 60, I know they're destroyed. Like they're lacking rest. So I want to see that and balance that. And then what I like to do is over time, every day, that's just kind of the trigger that I watch that says, hey, today's a bad day to go train. Because if you wake up and your HRV is dumped, I know you're stressed, your risk of injury goes up. The Philadelphia Eagles brought this into play a few years ago. They started focusing a lot more on rest and athlete management versus just crushing them. Right. They went one season from the most injured team in the league to the second least injured team in the league. Yeah, it was crazy. It was when Chip Kelly came in. I know he sucked as their coach, but he brought that into play. That was a fascinating stat, and what they watched was recovery. So it's been around. It's cool. My personal favorite is the Oura Ring because it's you wear it on your finger, so it's a really good place to measure, and it's measuring all night long while you sleep. And so you get an average HRV, a low HRV, and a readiness score every morning. That's what I love. But they're on crazy back order. They're like you order a ring now, it takes 12 to 14 weeks to get it.
Really?
So yeah, that's the one bummer. So what I do now is I use Elite HRV with new clients. Yeah. As we wait for the Oura Ring to get in. So from my experience, Elite HRV it's free. You just need the heart rate monitor, but it's not as accurate as like the Oura Ring.
And so what's great about that is like, because we all, I mean, anyone who works out a lot, or like if you're training for a race, or if you're doing CrossFit, or if you're a football player, do so much. You wake up, you feel like crap. And like, but even on days you feel like crap, but if you have a good HRV, you could actually work out that day. I mean, theoretically.
Happens all the time. We've experienced it. We wake up, we feel horrible. We force ourselves to the gym, and boom, we have a world-class workout. That was the day. Like that was a good day to go. Then there's other days we wake up like I don't feel great, but I'm going to force it and have the worst workout ever. Like it just did nothing for you. It's not the person who can work out the most. It's the person who recovers the best from the workouts. And like to validate this, like people are like that's crazy. I'm like, well, okay, well, what's the advantage of steroids? Like, what do steroids do? They enhance recovery. Yeah. Like okay. If that's how you cheat, well, why don't we start applying all kinds of recovery strategies legally so you get the same effect? So it's a really fascinating world. I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning. Like I remember I used to do with your wife. Like there are some crazy strategies out there that will rebalance a person. The one I remember we were talking about earlier with your wife about how I have her carb load and then get on a treadmill with a weight vest for a period of time. I learned that from LA police top SWAT guy. Wow. That was his thing. Like that was his thing that he found improved HRV the most when it crashed a certain way. So so I remember I used to do that all the time with your wife because that would balance her out super fast. Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes it's crazy things like take a cold shower and have a glass of wine and go to bed and wake up the next day you feel great.
What are things like that do? So they'll increase HRV. Is that your primary measure?
That's what I'm watching. Yeah, that's what I'm watching is HRV and readiness. And I've just kind of learned, people can come in and argue like, oh, that stuff's not fully accurate. Yeah, but at least we have some type of a picture.
Okay.
I know if my HRV has crashed hard and I've been tracking it specifically for a person, something's not right, right? It may not perfectly, may not be the best system, but like if somebody crashes into a sympathetic overload, we would want to do things to calm them down. If somebody crashes into a parasympathetic overload, we want to do things to stimulate them to get them more balanced out. So
what's the difference? So what's the difference in layman's terms between those two?
layman's terms, if somebody goes in a sympathetic overload, it means they're generating crazy amounts of stress hormones. They're super heightened. They're like in a fight or flight state. So we'd want to calm that physiology down.
Sure.
And then another way is if you've been in a fight or flight state long enough, you've been cranking, eventually the body will just shut you down.
Yeah.
And once it shuts down, then you go parasympathetic. And if you push through parasympathetic is when you start to overtrain. So once you get tired and there's no drive, that we've all had that day, right? Doesn't matter how much coffee you drink, you cannot focus at work. You just can't function. You just want to sleep, and no matter how much you sleep, you feel tired all the time. That's when you've gone parasympathetic. So to balance the system out, it needs a little bit of stimulant. A good stimulant typically is extreme cold exposure, like cryotherapy, cold showers, cold dips, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
For you, when you're working with people too, how often do you see adrenal fatigue? So does the HRV and adrenal fatigue, are they kind of like, are they kind of related?
Kind of, yeah. Okay. The adrenal fatigue thing is interesting. There's a lot of new theories coming out that maybe the original theory was wrong. What I'm looking at is hypothalamus pituitary triggering of the adrenals. It's just like diabetic, right? It's the signaling that crashes, not so much the pancreas crashing. Think like if your testosterone stops because the hypothalamus pituitary no longer trigger the testes to make testosterone, there's nothing you can do. You got to go on testosterone therapy at that point. Oops, lost my thing here. So what we're finding a lot of times is the hypothalamus pituitary signaling begins to wear out a little bit. But there is direct correlation between adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, a lower HRV. If you're in adrenal fatigue state, your HRV is going to be lower. Your ability to recover is going to suck.
Right.
Bottom line. It's what happens is people start to hit that adrenal fatigue state, and their solution is to train harder or cut more carbs or to deprive themselves of more food or do double workouts. And it's like, oh man, it's just compounding the problem so bad.
Wow. I definitely believe that. When you, that's awesome. As you're working with what do you see in like the difference between a marathon runner or a football player? So because they're completely different, right? I mean, you have type 1 muscle being used dramatically, you have type 2 muscle, being used dramatically on the other. So an explosive athlete versus a distance athlete, when you're working with them, what's your process? Is it still the same process? Because essentially their stressors are different. Do you find that the distance runner is less stressed than the short burst, or
they're stressed differently. Distance athletes typically, now there are ones that don't fall in this boat, but they typically will become parasympathetic dominant. They need stimulation. The football players, explosive athletes, they tend to become more sympathetic dominant. So and central nervous system fatigue becomes a big problem with explosive athletes, right? Like a simple test I like to have vertical jump tests on athletes because as you begin to overtrain and CNS begins to get tired, you won't see it in the weight room. You'll see it in a vertical jump. Like the more explosive the movement is, the more you'll see the impact quicker. They also talk about like grip strength, but I found vertical jump tests, if you have a good vertical jump mat test, to be a great tool with explosive athletes to see that. The I haven't found the tool to use an endurance athlete because what happens, their body just starts getting lethargic and shuts down. So they need more stimulation. So like what I would do to balance out an endurance athlete when they go HRV off is more like intervals, cold therapy. I basically stress them a little bit, where the football player, it's all calming stuff. It's going to be long, drawn out aerobic stuff. It's going to be, warm baths. So you're trying to calm the CNS, and when you're trying to stimulate the CNS, basically, typically. Yeah. And what I find is that the more CNS efficient, the more freaky an athlete is explosively,
Yeah.
The harder it is to manage them, because the more likely they are to overtrain, because they need more rest.
Interesting.
And so what I see so often is explosive, super freaky athletes aren't really expressing their full athleticism, because in our world, especially in like American football, for example, it is like train more, do more. You got to outwork your competition. And so these guys are fried, and you know it because they're super emotional. So what I see is the high CNS, I call them dopamine types. I learned from Charles Poliquin years ago. They're just very emotional people once they get tired. It's crazy. Yeah, and they tend to drive people nuts because they seem like whiny baby types. It's just a sign they're tired. It's crazy.
Especially in an 18-game regular season, or 17-game regular season in the NFL. It's every week, man. You only get one bye week,
Yeah. The craziest ones are the hockey players. I mean, these guys are playing a football game every day.
Wow.
So we have been finding that you get those guys to do a lot of cardiac output work early in the off season to stretch that left ventricle, improve blood flow, improve oxygen consumption into the muscle. It's a game changer for those guys in the season.
I want to ask you that, because I was an athlete. I was a football player, but so when I was playing football, I'll kind of give you my experience, and I want to get your opinion on it. So when I was playing football in college, I was all short burst. I weighed 205 pounds. I was playing safety, but I'd run down 40 yards and I'd be huffing and puffing, right? I'd be tired and be like breathing, right? I started supplementing CrossFit into my weightlifting, into my workouts as I started to get into professional level. And like my aerobic capacity on the field was like, I was like 7 or 8 pounds lighter, which is really good because I was just leaner. But what's interesting about football, and I was playing then professionally, I was playing both ways and playing, special teams. I felt great. I couldn't explain why.
Yeah.
I was like, because when you're most short burst athletes, they're thinking like anything over 45 minutes is like death. Like, what are you doing going, right? Yeah. So when you just don't do it, like you're running 40-yard sprints only. Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you, is how that works. Like when you have an athlete, let's say you have a football, like they're offensive linemen, they're like, dude, I got to be 318 pounds and I'm a left tackle, whatever. Why what would you have them do to kind of balance out and increase their cardiovascular activity,
Yeah. So, so I was in your world. Like I was same thing, high school, college football player. Then I went into bobsledding. It was all short bursts. Like, and I had the belief system of if you train slow, you'll get slow. So everything's got to be fast. Right. And before you know it, I got an athlete's heart. My left ventricle's enlarged. It's thickened. I remember walking up flights of stairs and having to sit down because my heart rate was so high. Yes. So my heart rate started it got up to like 75 to 82 in the mornings, and my blood pressure went up, and I'm like, what the hell? God. So how I saved myself, I got challenged by a buddy. He's like, I think you're wrong on the cardiovascular side of things. So just do cardiac output, do nothing but that for 6 days a week for 4 weeks and see what happens. I'm like, I'm going to lose my muscle. I'm going to get slow. Well, what happened was I stretched the left ventricle. My blood pressure comes down. My heart rate comes down. I start sleeping deeper, recovering better. And all of a sudden my heart pumps more blood and gets more oxygen in the muscle. And the more oxygen that it gets, the higher your heart rate can go before you start dumping into the anaerobic threshold and building lactic acid. You recover better. So I make all my athletes develop a cardiac aerobic base.
You do.
It doesn't make them slow. Nobody talks about, and that research that all came out, you have to be doing like 25 miles or more a week to start getting the excessive cortisol production, the muscle wasting they talk about. Really? I'm sorry. Yeah, like everybody just seemed to because I got challenged on that. I said, no, I've seen the research. I said, no, you saw half the research. Showed me the full research piece. And yeah, it was like 25 miles a week of aerobic activity. I was nowhere near that.
Not even close.
Not even close. So now I work with a lot of NFL linemen, and those guys, if their weight drops, they get fined thousands of dollars for every pound below a weight limit. So with those guys, I just have them do long, drawn out, very low intensity, stay like 120 to 125, like 60 minutes. And I have them eating lots of carbs around it, so their weight doesn't change, but their performance goes up. So the better. And Joel Jamieson does a great job explaining this in his certification. He's one of the experts I studied around this whole HRV thing and conditioning for athletes. He shows how every sport has an aerobic foundation involved. Even football, the better your aerobic foundation is, the better you are at the repeat exposures. So I used to be wrong on that, and I committed. Like I thought that was the kiss of death for speed, and what I now believe is the kiss of death is not doing it.
Wow. And I wanted to ask you about too is Olympic sprinters. I know you've worked with or been around Olympic sprinters. We're talking to the fast guys in the world, literally.
Yeah.
And they're like strict on their HRVs, right? Like they literally will not train. Like what's their, I mean, for US spinners?
Yeah, they spend what was his name? What was his name? There was a guy out of Canada that was amazing with these guys. I'm looking at his book right now. I can't think of his name. This guy was brilliant. So what they found is that 100-meter sprint in competition took about 11 days for the central nervous system to actually recover from.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a 100-meter sprint is insane what it does to the physiology. So they would do that. They would only train at 90% of output or higher on days they were really ready and recovered and doing well. They spent a lot of the other days doing like, what did he call them? Tempo intervals. We'd go like 15 seconds at 75% of max, and then you would walk. So for example, you go like 75% effort on the straightaways, walk the corners on the track. And he found that to be a really good way, to drive great recovery on those guys. Because I had it in my mind, and I used to use the example, and I still see it being used all the time, so I don't blame anybody. But it's like, do you want to look like the Olympic sprinter or the Olympic marathon runner?
Yeah.
You want to look at the sprinter, you just sprint all the time.
Right.
And at the highest level, even when I got up to the bobsledding levels, I'm at the Olympic training centers, they spend a lot of their time doing aerobic capacity exercise to calm the system down to drive better recovery.
Wow.
We didn't spend every single day sprinting at max capacities. It was like every couple of days when you're ready for it, you would do it. It was the most eye-opening thing as I started seeing all these things. I'm like, oh, no wonder I was such a train wreck.
Can't imagine. I know also we're talking Chinese weightlifters, right?
Yeah.
Like super dialed in on, I mean, Chinese weightlifters, you could argue the best lifters in the world.
Yeah.
What is their recovery like?
I don't know. I've actually never studied them. They're a fascinating group. I did. One time I had a guy show me, he was a Chinese medicine doctor, and I wish I could remember what they were. I've used them with my football players in the past. They would use a specific type of tincture while they trained, and then as soon as they began to overtrain, they would take some time off and switch the tincture, and it would drive crazy recovery. So I would use it on my really high CNS guys. As soon as they started to get a little emotional, I would give them this Chinese tincture tea, and within a couple of days, they were feeling great again. So I know they put a lot of focus on recovery. I just outside of the tincture tea that I had at one point, I don't know what else they've done in the past. So.
And are you still doing like you test someone's ability to buffer acid? Yeah. You're still doing something? You're still doing that work? I mean, I know.
I will in a couple scenarios. So what I found is that if an athlete doesn't buffer acid well, they have no gas tank. They run out of gas.
Yeah.
So what we would do, a great example of that, I worked with Matt Barnes back when they played the Yankees, like super freaky explosive, had no gas tank. And so what we did was just loaded the guys up with green vegetables and greens. And, now it all changed. All of a sudden he became a workhorse and was money. So that's what we'll use it for, is that if somebody's telling me they have no gas tank, I'll test their ability to buffer acid. And if they can't buffer it well, I'll load them like green powders and greens. I learned that from a guy, Dr. Bob Rakowski. He teaches like clinical nutrition and things like that. That was his greatest thing I learned from him. The other test I learned from him that was super cool was an adrenal test. Simple adrenal test. You lay on your back, you take your blood pressure after 5 minutes, you stand right up, take your blood pressure again. And what happens if you stand up, take your blood pressure? It's a simple test you can test for adrenal health. But if it drops right away, we know that guy does not have good reaction. He'll be his first step will be slow and he'll have poor reaction. So we want to get his first step quicker, like on a 40. We would really go in and calm his adrenals, heal his adrenals, work on his adrenals. That was two of the most fascinating things I learned from that guy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So many things you're talking about, I'm thinking are trained.
Yeah.
But even before training, you're like, you just do more. You do more. You do your 40 starts 500 times, and you get faster at it. You never think about how your body's reacting to. Is that what you're talking about? Like that's crazy.
Yeah. You know the coolest thing I heard and I tested on the 40-yard dash, and I should know this guy. He's super well known in the CrossFit world. Kelly Starrett.
Yeah, of course.
He talked about his little kid, and all of a sudden, the little kid, running mechanics faltered about first grade. Started noticing first graders, so he just had him go out and run barefoot. So I did it with my kids. I saw my daughter, like all of a sudden, like she went from beautiful running mechanics to just like garbage overnight. Started having to run on grass at work. I started having my athletes that need to get faster do sprint work barefoot on grass. dramatically improves 40-yard dash for a lot of athletes.
Wow.
Yeah, like that.
I was training for my NFL combine.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's fascinating what these guys have access to now. So I work with Rep One Sports. That, they represent like Carson Wentz and Jared Goff and Mitch, like just the super freaks right now.
Yeah.
The stuff we're bringing to these table for these guys, we prep them for the combine, and even keeping them healthy in season is just, it's pretty freaking cool.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
What's your take? I would love asking this question too. There's all these diets out there, right? There's like paleo diet, alkaline diet, keto diet, whatever hell diet, what's your take on all this stuff? Because I hear so many different, when you design a diet or, nutrition plan for somebody, are you going on a base of like a certain, or I'm going keto base, I'm like just hypothetically, or are you just going based off of literally their blood work strictly, or say, well, here's, how do you plan it out?
Yeah, I do base it off of symptoms and lab results, right? Like for instance, if I see somebody has very low triglycerides, like triglyceride levels of like 50 or 60, but then their fasting glucose is like 95, I know right then and there that person probably eats paleo or keto and is under a shit ton of stress. Sorry, a lot of stress. I'm gonna give that person carbs because they were where I was, like super low triglycerides, but fasting glucose of 90 or higher. Like I was like triglyceride levels of 55 and fasting glucose of 127. Like, but wow. So it's like, so if I see that kind of split, I know that's a high stress person that needs carbs to balance out their blood sugar. So that'd be an example of where I would make a tweak. I don't like to go super extreme because I work with high performers, right? I'm working with athletes and high achievers that are burning lots of energy. I don't go to the extremes because most of the extreme diets were made for sick people, right? Keto diet was originally built for people that had neurological issues. And, like if you got Parkinson's or anything like that, it's amazing.
Right.
I remember one time I had an athlete who somebody, very famous person consulted with him and put him on a keto diet. And after 6 months of being on the keto diet, going through training camp, his serotonin receptors brain shut down. In the middle of an airplane, a 325-pound lineman tried stabbing himself in the middle of a plane with a plastic fork, was just freaking out. Yeah, so like I don't like to go to the extremes.
Holy crap! Just from
yeah, it was like what I ended up finding out is that the guy couldn't ever get to that fat adaptive standpoint. He's in training camp. So was just stuck with pulses of adrenaline 24/7. Couldn't sleep. He's in the middle of NFL training camp, not sleeping. Yeah. Forcing keto, and eventually the brain just shut down. It was scary. Yeah. So I don't like to work in worlds of extremes. So I kind of have a generalized platform. I like my people to have fat every day and carbs every day. So we build a baseline, and then we just start testing, right? Because everybody's individual. Some people end up going more high fat, low carb most of the day. Other of my athletes will go higher carb, lower fat. It all depends on what makes them perform the best and stabilize HRV the most. And the reality is that this, like, only you can really truly know if the diet you're following is good for you. And I use Dr. Jay Tita's scenario. He calls it schmeck. Is your schmeck in check? Are you sleeping good? Is your hunger in check? Is your mood good? Is your energy good? And are you not having any cravings? If you can say yes to all those things, the plan you're on is working. But if any one of those 5 are off, something's not right, and you're going to end up having a crash. And I have validated that. I've tested the hell out of that with every single person I work with. It's every week I send them those questionnaires, and I know in a heartbeat if something's going to go wrong before it goes wrong. And it's very rare I see somebody do really good on one extreme or the next if they're under a lot of stress, if they're a high performer. And, I know there's so much science talking about how great the keto diet is, and if it works for you, it works for you. I know there's so much. I'm good friends with Rob Wolf. I've done a lot of podcasts with him. He's freaking awesome. Yeah. But even he will say, like, it's not for everybody, Right. And he's now even gone more towards the keto realm, and it's awesome. He looks freaking great. Right. But it works for him. He's super healthy. He pays attention to what's going on. He's not judging success off of what does the outside of my body look like. And that's what most people are judging success on. It might change. Best I ever looked, worst I ever felt. And I'm going to tell you, I see it over and over and over at the highest levels of competition. Oftentimes, people need to be a little fatter than they think they do to perform at a world-class level. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Because so many athletes, I mean, like you said, too, they want to look the part. They just want to, so they avoid fats and carbohydrates. Yeah.
That's
so there's your energy substrate. Like, how the hell are you supposed to perform with no energy substrate? Like, at least go one way or the other. Like, the ones that cut it all out and just go protein and vegetables, those scare me the most because you got nothing to run off of. That was made for extreme weight loss. Like people that are way overweight, super lazy. You want to get those people to lose weight? Yeah, take away all their energy substrates, give them protein and vegetables. They will lose weight.
100%.
But as soon as the more active they get, the more things have to change. And that's just the thing. Like you can't be a world-class athlete feeding yourself like you're a sick, lazy person and expect a good outcome.
No, no way.
Yeah, no.
What do you see as far as a lot of professional athletes are like early 20s, right? They're kind of younger. So
yeah.
You learn diet as you kind of, I mean, what I know from my experience, but from being an idiot for years and eating pizza before games and stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you find that like just like crappy sugars do? What do they do to the body? So, and for recovery. So, I mean, I'm talking soda. I'm talking crap, right? I'm talking shit.
It's to me that's the biggest enemy, because what I see, it thrashes HRV, it wrecks recovery, and it also drives inflammation. So I see what I see is the more low quality food an athlete eats, the more I can expect them to get hurt sooner. Like they'll end up having a muscle tear, a tendon issue. Yeah, because they're just eating crap. So basically, as the body's repairing itself, it's repairing it with crap. So I think sugar, fast food, I think those types of things are the devil. I think that's where the problem lies, not in eating too many complex carbs or too much fat. You'd be shocked if you saw some of the diets I write for these guys. I mean, it's crazy amounts of complex carbs, and they're just getting leaner and leaner and leaner and performing better and better and better. But what they're not doing is crushing sugar, crushing soda. They're not over consuming coffee. They're eating real food and a lot of it. But yeah, I think sugar and fast food scare me the most because all I see is a direct correlation. The more you eat, the more likely you are to get hurt early on in your career.
Right. I mean, sugar with, alcohol consumption too. But I mean, what's your take on alcohol when you're working with athletes or even just, CEOs, whatever, whoever wants to just optimize.
The reality is that alcohol is a toxin, right? So when you consume alcohol, your whole metabolism shuts down and only focuses on dealing with the alcohol first. So there's that part of it. But everybody looks at alcohol as carbs. I'm like, okay, well, I have every single person I work with eat a bunch of carbs at dinner. So I'm not worried about the carbs. What I'm more concerned about is the impact it has on metabolism. What I found is red wine and beer, there's some stuff showing they upregulate glutathione, which is an antioxidant. It cleans the brain out. It helps detoxification. Those can actually have been shown to upregulate a little bit. Hard alcohol has been shown to downregulate it. So I tell my athletes, if you're going to drink, I don't recommend it, but I get it, right? I'm married and it's really nice. My wife and I love to have a glass of wine a couple nights a week, and just I'd much rather people like have a glass of wine, have a great conversation with someone they love, than suck down water and stare at a TV screen and stress their brains out. But but like. If you're going into a huge competition, you should not be drinking alcohol for at least 6 weeks out. It's bottom line.
6 weeks.
Because that's my opinion, because it's all it's doing is hampering recovery. It's disrupting sleep, and it's putting the metabolism on pause. So the energy that could be spent healing and regenerating and fixing things is now stuck dealing with the alcohol, and then it can go back to work. So that's my take on it. If you're not preparing for something huge, I don't care if you have a glass a night and every couple nights having some, because what I find, if the rest of your lifestyle is healthy, you're sleeping good, you're meditating, you're eating right, you're taking the right supplements for your metabolism at that time, you can get away with a couple drinks, not pay the price. So generally I like to say, hey, look, I don't care if you have a couple drinks, a week, whatever, drink a night, I don't care. I give everybody I work with a 3-hour cheat window every week, where there's no rule starting at dinner.
It's just a window.
It's a psychological break, and just, but it has to be at dinner for 3 hours, because then you'll just fall asleep, right? Because when you eat like that, you just get tired and fall asleep. You'll wake up the next day, feel horrible, not want to do it till the next weekend. If you start off in the morning, do it, the food addiction kicks in. It's all day, and then people tend to go in hiding because they feel guilty, and it's like 3 days, and it's a week, and then I get the call, hey, I'm sorry. It's like, I already knew what happened.
Right. So you do a 3-hour window. What do you have your athletes do in a 3-hour window? Just
whatever the hell they want. I do tell them the primary macronutrient intake has to be carbs. That's when I'll let them get their sugar fix. I like it to be more of a high carb, low fat intake window.
Okay.
So I just have them focus on lots of carbs and then whatever
What
else
kind
they
of
want.
carbs?
That's the night where I like them. Like my ideal platform, what I typically will take them out when I show it to them is we'll go out and we'll go to Mother's Market and just have a huge stack of gluten-free pancakes with really good maple syrup. And we'll just eat as many of those as we can, and we'll leave there and either go get like gluten-free cupcakes. I have most of my athletes eat gluten-free because it's hard, one, to find good testing, and two, so often I see gluten sensitivities lead to joint issues and joint pain, especially in the elbows. So I show them gluten-free options that you can find good options. We'll go to like Sprinkles and have gluten-free cupcakes.
Yeah.
Or we'll go to Yogurtland and get gluten-free, dairy-free yogurt. And I just let them pile it on. And what I'll do on those days is I won't eat all day before I go, so that I know, so I can out eat them. There's nothing better than having a 300-pound lineman who can't keep up with a little 180-pound guy in the food intake. But they have no idea that I didn't eat all day.
Yeah. So what's you just mentioned dairy. So what's your take on dairy?
I think it all depends on the individual personally. Okay. Like for me, I grew up on a dairy farm in Oregon. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. But I also took sensitivity testing at one point and realized, oh, it's my greatest sensitivity. I drink milk. I have asthma issues.
Wow.
But then I have some clients, like I worked with Joan London post-cancer, and you got to rebuild their immune system from that standpoint. So she was told to avoid dairy. There was no testing to acknowledge it. So I had to do some testing, found she was fine with dairy. So I started giving her dairy. One of the immunoglobulins in dairy, like whey protein, is really good to build the immune system. So I like to use it if I can, but if it's a sensitivity for someone and it's an issue, then I'm not going to.
Yeah. What I love about what you do is you put the research and actually look at the blood work. You don't just prescribe a diet, like
exactly. Yeah.
Or some kind of nutrition of what works for you. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
You ever hear about that? Go ahead. You ever hear about that? I forget the name of the doctor, but he's on an all meat diet. So he's up in where's he at? The guy's like shredded, dude. He's super shredded. Yeah. And he's literally on an all meat diet, like only red meat.
a buddy of mine started doing that. And one thing I don't know anything about it, but he said that he's shocked at how good his joints feel since he started that.
Right. Really? So,
I don't know. That's one of those realms that it's going to an extreme. And I don't know.
And you got to think, if you're from like Antarctica or something, and that's your heritage, maybe that makes sense because you just can't get any,
Yeah. The metabolic type diet, he was a big proponent of that. Like what he found was like you take those people from Antarctica and you put them and start feeding the diet of people from Africa. Well, they would start to get sick, but then you take the person from feed them the diet of the Eskimos, and all of a sudden they start getting sick. And so I believe in that a lot, that there is a heritage scenario that comes into play with people.
Yeah. I think that's when I was looking at keto too. There's a Netflix special. Not sure if you've seen it. It's a Netflix like documentary about keto, and they were studying like the Aborigines in Australia, and like they put them on keto, and like they're basically, these people were eating like literally crap. They were eating all kind of Americanized fast food, and they're like, oh, we're gonna put them on this diet, and people were getting, they're diabetic, they're getting cancer at like 40. It was like heart attacks, so like any clean diet would fix that.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of what you're saying. They took a family of like, I don't know if you saw it. They took a family of like 5, and one daughter with special needs. She was like severe autism, and then there was a mother that was overweight, father that was kind of, and they put them on a diet, like, oh, look how healthy they got,
Yeah.
But what was profound was all that fat. Their daughter, who she couldn't even speak, she was so disabled. She was able to start speaking words after like 6 weeks.
That's amazing.
Just being on a clean diet, like no crackers, for snacks, like having like whole foods, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there's something with the food in America. My business partners, they just were off in Malta, a little small island off the Mediterranean, and they went out for 2 weeks, and they didn't really fall. Like they eat pasta all the time, drinking wine all the time, ice cream. It felt great. They come back here, they get back in New York, and their first healthy meal blew their stomachs up. They felt horrible.
Wow.
But it was like a healthy meal in America. And like, what is the deal? I'm like, I've always said that. Whenever my clients go to Europe, to Italy and stuff, I'm like, just eat whatever you want. I've had a celiac client go to Italy, accidentally had some gluten, it was fine, and just started crushing carbs like pastas and gelato and no issue. And this person was a celiac, like confirmed celiac.
Wow.
It was shocking. Yeah, so there's some stuff going on with our food.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I completely agree.
if you eat like crap and you go on any healthy diet, it's gonna work, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well now you fine tune. Now you want to go to the next level. What's the next level look like? In my world, a lot of times it's like, okay, I just finished, 50th in the world of CrossFit Games. How do I get to 25?
Right.
You gotta. There's not a whole lot you can tweak there.
Right.
So every little bit counts at that standpoint.
Yeah. So when you're I love this, is awesome. When you're working with CEOs too, which are somewhat, are they somewhat more, let's say they're sedentary. I'm not saying somewhat, a lot of CEOs, are pretty active, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you find? Because I'm just seeing your everyday person. You got, a family of 4, and they're doing their thing. What are you finding in their systems that's, somewhat like a warning sign? You're like, oh crap, you need to start doing X,
Yeah, they typically are exhausted.
Mm.
They don't sleep. They're stressed out of their minds. Mental emotional stress is winning. I start 95% of my CEOs the first month, they're not allowed to exercise.
Really?
I think last time I saw, like 1 in 15,000 people in America die on a treadmill. Like, that's not good. It's some crazy statistic. Like, it's exercise is stress. Most of them are out of energy and they're running on fumes. They don't have what it takes to go to the gym to work out. So what I do with those people, kind of the same thing I do with the tired athlete, is, okay, no exercise. We're going to sleep a lot. You're going to eat certain ways to clean up the metabolism. I tend to have to focus a lot on that level on liver health, like kind of cleaning up the liver. I want that thing optimized. 600 metabolic activities happen in that thing on every day. So I want that trending and burning. I don't put them on a crazy detox. I think that's nuts, how toxic we are. But I get them sleeping. I clean up their liver. I get them to rest. And I won't let them exercise until they start begging for it. Because at that point I know, oh, okay, I've won. Because the first time you tell somebody, hey, look, you can't exercise, your body can't take it.
Me up. Yeah.
They're just like, oh, thank God. Like, I didn't even want to do it. But before long, if you do it right, they're like, okay, I'm ready to exercise. Like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm ready to go. That's what I want from those guys. Because then at that point, I know their brain's back online. I know they're going to make better choices. Their culture is going to get better at work. And one of the most powerful things a CEO can do is optimize their health.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing anything like it. I've never seen a CEO take better care of themselves and make less money. Let's put it that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
Huh. So you just like, all right, you're not working out for the month. Let's say they're a workout junkie.
Yeah.
Not training for a month. And what do you find too with heart rate and sleep?
Yeah.
So resting heart rate. So like, because a lot of people like out there, like, dude, they're stressed or, they're stressed and they're not sleeping, which is leading to more stress, obviously. What are you finding with heart rate?
I find that resting heart rate dictates a lot of, in regards to sleep quality. The higher the resting heart rate is, the less quality sleep they're getting. I want my CEOs to have a resting heart rate of 60 or less first thing in the morning. If it's above that and the higher above that is, the more I know they're not regenerating and recovering from that standpoint. So what I will have those guys do, the first exercise those guys will get once I get them to just calm down a little bit, is cardiac output stuff, like 120 to 140 for 30 to 60 minutes at a time. We got to stretch that left ventricle and get heart rate down. We got to get stress down. We got to get the left ventricle to pump better blood. We got to get the heart rate down. Bottom line, they can't handle pressure at rest. There's no way in hell I'm going to go push those guys in a gym and expect a good outcome. You're just going to kill them. So, and I really started recognizing this as all of a sudden my key income generator was not my gym. It was, oh, I got all these tools. What's the best tool for this person? It becomes a game changer at that standpoint. And then what happens is they fall in love with the exercise and they want it more than anything. And then you become their brakes, not their gas pedals. Like, hey, okay, stop working out so much. Like, you're going to kill yourself. Like, you're going to go backwards. Like, okay, take the day off. It's okay, and, oh, but I feel so good. I want to exercise. I'm like, that's great. Let's keep that. We want that, but let's not overdo it. And I know, like, people hear me talk, they're like, I've had people complain after they heard me speak that, like, I don't know my audience. Like, we all know we need to exercise more. I came across some great research that shows that 60% of Americans are active, yet 33% of us are obese. And then compared to a country like Japan, only 40% of Japan is active, yet only 5% are obese. It's not an activity issue. That's not our problem. Like, we are the most active, but still have the most obesity issue.
Really?
It's not a lack of exercise that's the problem. It's our metabolisms just are shut down. Most of us aren't. most non-athletic populations, like you got the CrossFitters. I always put CrossFitters in the athlete department. They're amazing what they do. If you CrossFit, you're amazing what you do, right? I'm talking like general population that just sits all day, doesn't want to move much. It's not the lack of activity that's the problem. It's a congested metabolism that's just shut down and slowed down. So exercise will never work in that realm because the metabolism's not on their side. So that's why I talk this way. It's like, let's fix the problem and then go optimize. Exercise is not going to fix the problem. It's just the reality of it. I wish it wasn't the truth, because I love exercise more than anything. But unfortunately, like, you got to get a person in a place where exercise is a good stress or a eustress versus a distress.
There's so many. I mean, I'm in the CrossFit world, but I'm around, becoming around more distance runners too, and all that stuff. But like it's all like your exact, maybe 5% of them consume what they're supposed to be consuming, like on a daily basis. The whole thing with people that do CrossFit or any kind of, they want to get lean, they want to get cut, they want to look good. It's the same stuff, and they're not eating enough, right? I was that way too. I was down to 183 pounds at one point, and I'm 195 comfortable. Yeah. My wife too at the time, she's like, dude, your eyes were sunken in. I was in a regional competition. She's like, you look like crap. Like, you look like you just need, training 2 to 3 times a day. I thought more was better, Yeah. I wouldn't even eat rice. Yeah. That's how I was getting so lean. Looked great, like kind of like similar to you. And it just makes you think about, like, that was totally stupid. I was literally starving my body. Yeah.
It's funny now. I don't work with as many CrossFitters anymore because I've kind of moved more into the world of NFL. But if a CrossFitter does hire me to work with them, the first thing I'll do is make them eat nothing but carbs for 3 days. I need them to feel the power of carbs, like, and that's kind of because I know what to expect. There's going to be an increase in drive. They're going to get leaner. They're going to recover some. They're going to feel great. So if somebody's not willing to do that as a CrossFitter, I'm not willing to work with them, because
I get you.
It's one of the things that has been misinterpreted, is that leaner equals better and carbs are the devil. And it's like, no, you're taking a diet for sick, lazy people that have no stress and applying it. I mean, if you're going to train CrossFit, I'm sorry, you're training like a world-class athlete. Like, you got to feed yourself like a world-class athlete. I mean, remember Michael Phelps' 10,000 calorie a day diet? Yeah,
outrageous.
He wasn't fat. Like, he was matching his calories consumption to his calorie output. And there's a lot of science showing now that you got to stay within 300 to 500 calories of consumption in versus what you burn, or you're stressing the metabolism out and you're paying a price.
How can someone measure that, like, on their own? How could they measure how many calories they're burning on a daily basis versus what they need to consume? Let's say you're a guy who walks into a gym. I don't call it UFC, call it CrossFit, doesn't matter. Says, hey, I want to get in good shape. How do you measure?
I have like an algorithm I've built out over the years as a starting point. What I don't like people to get obsessed on counting calories or weighing things, but I had an algorithm that I built out, and if anybody wants it, they can just go to eatsleeprecover.com, answer questions, and they'll get the whole free nutrition plan. They'll see, like, what my starting point would be for them.
What's the website again? What's the website?
eatsleeprecover.com.
Eatsleeprecover.com.
You answer questions. It takes a couple minutes, and boom, you have your nutrition program. You see my actual algorithm of where you should start, for how active you are, and the goals you want. And then from there, it's just a matter of tweaking. So what the system does, if you add on the coaching with it, is, okay, we just watch Schmeck. Is your Schmeck in check? Like Dr. J. Tita taught me, if the Schmeck is out of check, one of the first things we'll do is start putting more calories in, putting more carbs in, things like that. So it's just a matter of, without having to, like, give my whole algorithm I created away, it's there.
Yeah. Sure.
That took me a lot of years to fine tune, but it's there. And then you just track your Schmeck. Every week, every couple of days, you ask yourself, is Schmeck in check? If it is, your money. If it's not, something's wrong. And it comes down to eat less, do less, eat more, do more. So if you're working out more than you originally signed up for, you know that you need to eat more calories. Or if all of a sudden you go on vacation, you're not eating as much, you're not exercising as much, you need to back off on the calories you're eating.
Do you find the same issue with hydration with athletes too? They're completely dehydrated. Yeah, or vice versa. Maybe they're over. I don't know if they're overhydrating.
I've seen it be both. Dehydration impacts performance big time. 1% dehydrated can cost you 10% of your strength. Like,
wow.
There's a lot of value to hydration. So we want to make sure the athletes are drinking enough water. and absorbing enough water. Because what will happen a lot of times is mineral levels will get low. Do you guys still work with at your gym? What's the amino acid you guys used to have, the pre and post?
It was stronger, bigger, faster, not bigger, faster, stronger.
No, what was the name of it? Anyways, I learned it from this guy named Will. He's a blood cell specialist.
Okay.
What he showed me is not so much just drinking the water, it's getting the water into the cell. So a lot of us are low in minerals, and so we drink a bunch of water, but we just pee it out like crazy. So now we're overhydrating and getting dehydrated. So
Right.
I like my athletes to drink, if they don't sweat a lot, it's half their body weight plus 20%, or half their body weight in ounces of water, and put a pinch of sea salt in everything. My athletes that are training and sweating a lot, it's half their body weight plus 20%, and pinches of sea salt in every bottle. And that tends to be kind of the magical realm there.
Okay, half the body weight plus 20%.
Yeah. For my CrossFit athletes that train a lot, that sweat a lot, yeah, that's the formula I use. But I learned from the cell physiologist, put a pinch of sea salt in every bottle to make sure the water is getting into the cell.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's smart. I remember we did a competition a while back. It was stupid, but it was a stupid competition, but my calves locked up. Right calf. It was a lot of running, and it was like a sandbag run. It was gnarly. It was like 7K, and I'd never done anything that distance. But
Yeah.
I remember listening you talk about this actually, because my wife was doing it at the time, and I literally got like a cup of salt.
Yeah.
A cup of salt. And I was drinking water and like licking the salt, and I felt I was dramatically better. Like I think we had the next workout like 2 hours later. That required similar muscle groups.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll use like spoonfuls of sea salt and a little bit of water to help to make sure mineral levels are staying up. Another one I've been playing with is Cytomax. I found some studies that show if you drink that around your training, you're less likely to cramp up as well.
Okay.
So that's an old school. I think it's called Cytomax.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an old school substance of that. Because I had a guy, a world-class cyclist. He just competed in the nationals to qualify for the worlds. And the guy's in first place in Alabama, crazy heat and humidity, and he's in first place by a couple minutes. 5 miles out of the finish line, legs totally cramp up, just seize up, and he can't pedal.
No way.
And he ends up finishing second place.
No shit.
Yeah, so I never even thought about that. Like I don't spend a lot of time in Alabama, and so we now have him using the Cytomax and doing more of the nutrient, the mineral loading, and just in case when he gets over to Europe for the Worlds that he doesn't lock up again. That sucks.
Those guys, I mean, those gnarly. They're burning an outrageous amount of calories on that bike, and dehydrating, man. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. So yeah, like literally locked out, legs were stuck straight, couldn't pedal, just had to like coast. And he was winning by a couple of minutes, and the guy ended up passing him right at the finish line.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Wow. It's been great, man. I want to kind of wrap up a little bit with your we were talking about this just kind of offline, but what your business now, like where are you getting to now? I know you said it focused getting into the gym world, and I know you're doing a lot of speaking, a lot more than just nutrition. Well, what's next for you now? What's your business about now?
So I've been working on it for the last 18 months, this program called eatsleeprecover.com. It's all of my stuff automated online. So you go on, you fill out some questionnaires, and boom, you get your nutrition program, and that's free. And then from there, if you want, you can add in coaching, where every week you fill out a questionnaire, and then according to how you answer things, you get coaching with it.
That's awesome.
And the program changes as you change. So every week you get a small questionnaire. At the end of every month, you get a bigger questionnaire. And the nutrition program will change accordingly to what you're dealing with. And you'll get tips and strategies according to what's going on. And then, that's like $20 a month if you want to add on the coaching. At $99 a month, $99 a month, you get the top 4 supplements I think your metabolism needs that month, and they get delivered to you. Plus you get the coaching. So now you have everything built into play where you get your nutrition's there, and you're answering questions every week, and it's changing for you. Every month it's changing. You get new supplements, because I believe nutrition program is kind of the foundation. Yeah. And then I like to use supplements to keep the metabolism in a good place. So if like all of a sudden 1 month we start seeing like, oh, your liver's a little congested, boom, we're going to load you up with liver support to take care of that. And then maybe the next month it's now the adrenals being impacted. So it's basically what I give my athletes at $1,000 a month is now available online for $99 a month. And it includes like Thorne and Designs for Health, like very high quality, safe supplements for my athletes and anybody else. So you know what you're getting. You know you're never going to blow a drug test. You know you're never going to have an issue with it. Like you can't even go on to Amazon and get the 4 supplements I'm going to give you for $99.
Wow.
I've built out with the people I know. I've never been so excited about something. And what I want to bring it into gyms. I want to bring it into gyms so that gym owners can have the option to make a new stream of income by adding in nutrition and supplementation without having to carry inventory, without having to, put money up front to put this thing in their gym. And we'll take on the liability. So now you have this thing to offer to your clients. You're making more money, and we're taking on all the liability and making sure it's all working. It's what I would have loved to have had as a gym owner, because I hated the inventory process. I hated having to manage that, having to have staff to be able to deal with the nutrition realm of things. So I just kind of filled in what I thought was a huge void in the industry, because nutrition, supplementation, recovery is beyond important.
Yeah.
Yet we are getting paid to get people exercise, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it in the gym setting. So I'm just beyond excited about it.
That's sick. That's freaking incredible. I'm actually gonna get on that. I'm gonna get on your website. I was gonna ask you about this too. And my wife doesn't like this too much, but I'm training for a 50K. And the first I've ever run is 7K.
Jeez, man.
Right?
That's awesome.
I just want to see if I can do it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just more a mental test for me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
But I'm stoked to I'm getting on your program for sure. I mean, it's kind of a requirement, because I was kind of freaking out. I was going for a run yesterday, just kind of BSing with my buddy. You know him. You work with him, Officer Smiley, Greg Smiley.
Oh man, I love Greg. Yeah.
We're gonna do it together. And I was like running. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna eat? I've never run this much. You know? I was just like, and every kind of diet was popping through my head. Like, is it like paleo? No, not paleo. No, I'm like, is it zone?
No, man, it's gonna be a lot of carbs.
I'm talking to Brad tomorrow.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine that did that. It's gonna be a lot of carbs. I would love to kind of show you what I did with him and help you with that a little bit.
Hell yeah. So we'll chat offline in a second.
Yeah.
Man, incredible. I love this. I'm stoked to get this out.
Cool.
Thank you so much for just being part of the show. I definitely want to have you back on. And
I love it, man. Thanks for having me. This was a great conversation. I obviously, I love this stuff. And again, I just want to reference, like, my stuff that I have research to back what I do, but so much of what I've come up with is just from in the trenches experience. There's theory and there's reality, and so I've kind of played them both. And so all I want to share with people is what I've learned in the trenches with high performers will just help them take their performance to the next level.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's good talking with you.
Perfect.